Hi there, welcome back to Indycar. My name's Gordon Ross, and today's Scottish news items are coming from Bearsden this afternoon. It's not my normal time for transmission, but it's been a bit of a crazy day. People have been late a lot today, so Indycar and the news are coming today a little bit later to you. At the top of the show, I posted a little bit of a blurb about what I'm going to be talking about. The first thing to say is that it seems that sorry is the hardest word, especially if you're an English newspaper editor and you just insulted the First Minister of a neighbouring country. Nicola Sturgeon quite rightly demanded an apology and a retraction from I think it was 4 British newspapers, in fact all of them part of the Murdoch empire, so the Times, the Sunday Times, the Daily Express and the Daily Mail, I believe, the Scottish Daily Mail, all printed a screaming headline about Nicola Sturgeon tearing down the Union flag and making sure that it couldn't be flown on the Queen's birthday, and that only this Scottish flag would be flown, and how terrible it all was. And now they've had to print a correction today. It seems to be too hard for the British press to actually say sorry to Nicola Sturgeon for libelling her, because what they said was an outright, outrageous, provable, verifiable lie. Because Alex Salmond, what was it, 11 years ago, something like that? No, it's less than that, but I think it was 2011, had a conversation with the Queen when she was at Balmoral and said, why don't we fly the Royal Standard of Scotland when you're in residence? Because that's the banner of the monarch in Scotland. So on your birthday or other royal birthdays, we'll fly the Lion Rampant on the gold standard, and that is the actual official flag of royalty in Scotland. Always has been since the earliest time, for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's the royal banner, and so that was the decision that was made. A few weeks ago, it was decided that the policy, which had been in place in one particular place, was going to be just extended across other major public buildings, so that the Royal Standard would be flown whenever there was a royal birthday or a marriage or the Queen was in residence at Balmoral. But instead of printing that, the newspapers basically lied and said that it was Nicola Sturgeon who'd issued the diktat to tear down the Union Jack and only put up this so-called inferior Scottish flag when the Queen was in residence. Now, why did they do it? Well, obviously they wanted to inflame the sectarian bigots who live in the west coast of Scotland and in other places in Scotland, so that they would rage against the Scottish nationalists, and in particular against Nicola Sturgeon. Again, she's completely blameless. There hasn't been a libel scandal on this scale since Alistair Carmichael lied about Nicola Sturgeon saying something to the French ambassador. And at that point, if you think about it, Alistair Carmichael, Liberal MP, actually lied not only about the leader of the Scottish nation, but also lied about a Minister of State of the French state as well. And he libelled both of them, and eventually, after a lengthy crowd-funded legal battle, he finally got off with a slap on the wrist. However, this time, Nicola Sturgeon has not had an apology from the Murdoch press at all. There's been a correction on page 50 of the Daily Mail, which simply said that they were pleased to correct this mistake that they had made. It wasn't a mistake at all, and it wasn't in just the Daily Mail, and she should be demanding an apology from the Times as well, and the Daily Express. And not only just a retraction, but an actual apology, because the Independent Press Standards Authority will get involved, and they will be able to fine these newspapers for printing a libel, an unsubstantiated lie, basically. Moving along, okay, in Davos in the last few days, you will have seen pictures of Donald Trump and Theresa May and a vase of flowers, and Trump speaking in fairly basic rhetorical terms about this alleged special relationship that we have with the United States. Now, it's interesting to note that since Trump came into power, his policies have been completely anti-globalization. What Trump has done is he has closed the doors to imports to America, and he is trying to increase the number of manufacturing businesses in the United States, which is fair enough. But what he's done is he's taken a protectionist stance. He's become anti-globalist, anti-free trade. He's pulled out of all the free trade agreements that were being negotiated, and America has now set itself up as an industrial fortress. Now, he's also said, and I quote him here, that militarily Britain and America are, quotes, joined at the hip. Now, what does that tell you about the special relationship? Well, it tells me that the United States views the UK not only as an ally, but as a puppet, as a small state that it can control and which depends on America for its protection. Remember, we have 240 American nuclear missiles sighted about 20 miles away from where I'm sitting right now, and all of those belong to the American Department of Defence. They're not owned by the British state. They're not owned by the Ministry of Defence. We just own the submarines that they're in. So, does that make us joined at the hip? Well, yes, it does, doesn't it? Because we've agreed to house the missiles of the United States. And in exchange for housing these highly dangerous, toxic, mass murdering bombs on our doorstep, we have the dubious distinction of being protected, in inverted commas, by the American military might. But does that mean that we're going to be a favoured trading partner? Well, no, it doesn't, because one of the first things that Trump did when he came into power was he slapped a 400% tax levy on Bombardier aircraft, which manufacture parts for the airplanes, big parts like the wings, in the United Kingdom, in part of Northern Ireland, in fact. Now, a 400% markup is a gigantic disincentive to buy anything from Britain, because the Americans do not want to buy imports, because they elected Trump to keep imports out of America. So how are we going to have a special relationship which benefits exporters in the UK when Trump is closing the borders and shutting the customs down so that people can't import stuff into America? What does it say about the British Prime Minister when she is sitting there glad-handing the man who is basically shutting the door in her face and throwing hundreds of people out of work in Northern Ireland in the process? Not a word has been said about that. That's been conveniently swept under one of the expensive Persian rugs at Davos. Something needs to be done about that. But the truth of the matter is that the special relationship is America uses Britain. That's the relationship. In exchange for us being used as a nuclear dump, we get the protection of the American military, but we also get the blame because we're forced to go along with every American intervention and invasion that they've ever done, especially in the Middle East. And we're still got our troops and personnel out there getting shot at and blown up every day because we're joined at the hip with America. Is that a good thing? I don't think so. And I think most Scots would agree that we don't like housing other people's nuclear weapons right next to our largest city when we had no say in the matter at all. We were never given a chance to vote on that. We didn't get a chance to say, well, do you want to have these 240 nuclear weapons that we've borrowed from the United States, which we're paying them £100 billion to borrow, or not? We never got the chance to answer that question. We were just forced to accept it. One of the other things I think that annoys me about this business of the military might in the United Kingdom, and it links into the whole business of the cross-channel bridge, this idea of a bridge between Scotland and Ireland, which was being put about in the British press, and Arlene Foster in the DUP in Northern Ireland was saying she wanted it. She wanted a bridge between North Antrim and the Mull of Kintyre. But the point I was making the other day is to build that bridge, you have to cross Beaufort's Dyke, which is a 5-mile long, 250-foot deep seabed trench, which has 1.5 billion tonnes of British explosive ammunitions dumped in it. Now, as well as having 240 nuclear missiles in submarines passing over the top of 1.5 billion tonnes of TNT cordite, gunpowder, smoke, everything that you can imagine. All the nasty, most explosive, poisonous, toxic chemicals are in that trench. And we never got any say in whether we were used as an explosive dump as well. So our sea is full of British ex-military equipment, missiles, rocket motors, bomb warheads, shells, bullets, you name it. Everything that you can possibly imagine that could explode or burn like white phosphorus is dumped in there. In 1995, when Scottish Gas, or the British Gas as it was at the time, decided to lay a pipeline between Scotland and Northern Ireland, they had to go around Beaufort's Dyke, and this involved ploughing a trench in the seabed which was about 3 feet deep. And when they ploughed the trench, they disturbed hundreds of phosphor bombs. These are cluster bombs that were designed to set fire to buildings. Hundreds of these that had been dumped there after World War II floated to the surface and washed up on the coast of Scotland's beaches. Hundreds and hundreds of highly toxic, potentially self-igniting phosphor bombs were washed up on beaches and were being picked up by children. And one child was badly burned. The Ministry of Defence denied any knowledge of it. It wasn't theirs. And eventually they were forced, at long last, to send bomb disposal squads in to remove those. So when it comes to special relationships and being joined at the hip, just remember something. Scotland gets no choice about whether we're joined at the hip with America. We get no choice about being used as a dumping ground for weapons, or as a site for weapons of mass destruction, or in the case of one of our islands, a site where they dumped, I can't even believe this, a toxic biological agent there which was designed to wipe people out using a weaponised version of anthrax. And a few years ago, back in the 1990s, the island of Grunard, which is where they had dumped the anthrax toxins, eventually had to be completely decontaminated at massive public expense. The top 3 feet of the soil over the entire island was removed. It was sterilised completely with, I'm trying to remember what it was that they used, but they used a very powerful disinfectant over all of the soil before they put it all back again. And even then it was several years before that was safe. And are you happy being joined at the hip with America and the United Kingdom when they do that to you militarily? I don't know about you, but I'm not happy about it. So when you listen to Theresa May and Donald Trump going on about their special relationship, just remember the special relationship isn't one where we benefit. The special relationship is one where America benefits. We get nothing back but job losses. The guys in Northern Ireland are losing jobs because the Americans will not import Bombardier planes. They refuse to do it, and Trump has made it impossible for that to happen. So how the hell is he going to have any kind of special relationship with Britain? Well, I'll tell you what it is. The Tories are taking us out of Europe. That means Britain is becoming a protectionist state similar to America. Now, if we're similar enough to America, the Americans are pretty much just going to adopt us as another place to park more toxic stuff that they don't want. Maybe they're going to dump lots of chlorinated chicken into our markets that we would never normally be allowed to eat because our food standard is so high that that kind of thing wouldn't be permitted. Maybe that's what's going to happen. Or maybe we're going to get lots of specially grown beef, the stuff that the Americans eat, which is pumped full of hormones and other drugs which they use to control diseases in animals. We don't know, but whatever the special relationship is with America, it's not going to be a good special relationship. We are going to be the people that take all the rubbish from America. We are going to be the people that can't export to America because they've shut their doors. And we, just like America, have been just the same with Brexit. We're shutting our doors to Europe so that we can't import stuff from Europe without it costing a fortune. And likewise, the Europeans are going to charge a huge tariff on stuff that we make. So I suppose you could say we are joined at the hip with America. We're just as stupid as Donald Trump. And if Theresa May thinks that that's a good thing at Davos, and that begging Donald Trump for a special relationship is in some way going to entice Scottish people to vote for her, or to keep going with Brexit. I think she's got another thing coming. I can't see people, now that they know the facts of the matter, wanting anything to do with a special relationship with a protectionist United States, one that won't take our products, one that throws our workers onto the dole because they won't accept any of our imports. That's not the kind of special relationship I want. And as far as I can see, I mean, I do a lot of polemic talking, as you know, but when I see a news item which says special relationship, you have to ask yourself, what is the relationship? It's an abusive relationship. We are the junior member of this relationship. We're the ones that get told to do all the dirty jobs, dispose of all the filth that the big American industries don't want to deal with, to get rid of the poor quality meat that they can't sell at home. It'll all come to us. That's what the special relationship will be. And if they have a war, they'll expect us to go along dutifully and get shot at along with them. So, to my mind, the special relationship is one of servant. And we've already been, in Scotland, servants to the United Kingdom long enough. And I know, and you know, that being a servant to the United Kingdom means Scotland becomes a dump for nuclear weapons, for other explosive ordnance and biological warfare agents, not to mention experimental nuclear power stations that could have blown up, but were never actually, nobody was ever actually told that when they were installed. Scotland is a place where life is cheap, according to the special relationship that we have with the UK. Anyway, I've got to go. That was a bit of a rant. I'm sorry if it seemed like I was having a good old rant there, but it's important to remember that there is no special relationship. There's an abusive relationship, and I don't feel like being part of it anymore, and I don't think Scotland should be part of the abusive relationship that the UK has with us either. I think it's time that we took our own decisions. I think it's time that we had a referendum and voted to leave the UK, to be protectionist, to be the lapdog of the United States, and let the British state deal with nuclear weapons in their rivers. Let the British state dump their toxins in their own waters, and let them take their biological toxins and dump them on their own islands, and leave Scotland alone and let us get on with our lives, working in the real world and trading with Europe like normal, healthy, exporting nations should do, and stop this nonsense of protectionism and xenophobia that seems to have swept across the United States and has now infected the UK. I'm off. I hope you have a good weekend. That was the Scottish News Roundup and my take on it. As usual, if you have any comments on today's subjects or any others, contact me after the show by messaging me or by email. Have a good weekend. Bye for now.